السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praise are due to Allah, the Lord, the cherisher, the sustainer of the heavens and the earth. May His peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his family and his companions and his followers until the day of judgment. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can misguide him. And whoever is misguided, only Allah Azza wa Jal can guide him. And I bear witness that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is his last and his final messenger. O you who believe, fear your Lord as He should be feared, and don't die other than in a state of Islam. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد. O you who believe, be mindful of Allah and let every soul consider carefully what it sends forth for tomorrow. Throughout our lives we do things, there are things that we do that we get an immediate reward for. There's deeds and actions that we do, and we're looking for a reward, but sometimes we see that reward in this dunya. Maybe the fruits of something that we did, the positive impact of something that we've done. And then there are times that we do things where the reward is not immediate, but the reward will continue to outlive us when we're gone. And sometimes it's simply a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we do something that outlives us, without us even having the niyyah or the intention that this is a long, everlasting deed. The other day, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was reminding him of a conversation that we had maybe almost 25 years ago, in which he said something to me that encouraged me to be better. And he said, SubhanAllah, I don't ever remember having that conversation. You may have donated $1 for an immediate need. And what you didn't see is that dollar was invested for you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and continued to give you more and more rewards even without you doing anything. A true investment. And you didn't think anything of it. You may have said a kind word to somebody, didn't think anything of it, but it had a big impact on their life. Maybe you encouraged someone to change something in their life, and you said it in a good and positive way, and you never thought about it again, and yet that person changed their life because of something you did or something you said. Or maybe you thought of you wanting to do a deed that will continue to outlast you. Maybe you said, you know what, I'm going to build a well so that people can continue to drink from this well long after I'm gone. Or I'm going to help build a masjid, or help sustain a masjid, or a school, or help with the refugee program, or whatever the programs are that you're helping with, and you think to yourself that this is going to be a sadaqah jariyah for me. This is going to be an ongoing charity for myself. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that there are 3 things that follow a person to their grave. 2 of them leave and 1 of them stays behind. His family and his wealth and his deeds come with him to the grave, but his family and wealth, they leave him. And all that's left with him is his deeds. But from these deeds that we have that stay with us, which of these deeds are the best ones? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Kahf, He says, وَالْبَاقِيَاتُ الصَّالِحَاتُ خَيْرٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ. So it's not just good deeds. He says, وَالْبَاقِيَاتُ الصَّالِحَاتُ. The everlasting good deeds. The deeds that keep on going after you're gone. These are the best deeds. The everlasting ones. We think about results of our deeds, sometimes just perhaps as far as the eyes can see. But sometimes we forget to think about long term. We forget to think about the long game. We forget to think about our life and our time on this earth is very limited, but perhaps the rewards of our deeds doesn't have to be limited. Not long ago, I was reading some hadith about the fitna of the Dajjal and those trying and difficult times. And I was thinking to myself for a moment, I said, I hope that I'm not around during those difficult times. But then I thought to myself, if it's not me, then it's going to be my children. And if not them, then perhaps my grandchildren or some future generation. So what is it that we're doing to prepare future generations or to make a difference and to make an impact? Maybe we're able to avoid something, maybe not in our lives. But what are we doing to make a difference for those who come after us so that we can have a positive impact on the next generation after us? What are we leaving behind after we're gone? Today I want to talk about in the khutbah leaving behind a legacy. Leaving behind a legacy. I feel that throughout our lives, in different stages of our lives, there are different things that are important to us. Perhaps early on, when we're young and we're kids, the thing that's important to us is play, because that's all we want to do. And then we grow up a little bit, and we start thinking about friendships. And then maybe an education. And then getting money. And then starting a family. And it's not until we start thinking that very soon we're going to meet Allah, and we start realizing this, that we start thinking about what legacy are we going to leave behind. We start thinking about the things that are actually important. We start thinking about what is going to continue to benefit us when we go to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can we continue bringing good to people after we're gone? So the question today is, should we as Muslims be thinking about things such as, what are my children going to think about me when I'm gone? How will the world remember me when I'm gone? Will the world remember me when I'm gone? And am I going to be someone who's forgotten? Or am I going to be a legend in some people's eyes? Does all of this matter? Does any of this matter? When we realize that everything that we do is for the sake of Allah, right? And not for the people. So why is it important? Or is it important what our children think of us, what other people think of us when we're gone? And the answer to that question is yes, it is important. Yes, it is important. And we're supposed to think like this. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said, وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانًا صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. He would make dua and he would say, oh Allah, and grant me a good name among the generations who come after me. And one interpretation is that he's asking for a positive legacy. He's asking for a positive legacy for those who come after him, to know him as a righteous man, to grant him a good legacy. The desire to be a positive role model in the lives of people after he's gone. This was the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. In Surah Al-Furqan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. On the tongue of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said, and make us a role model for the righteous. So after he's gone, he wants to be a role model. He wants people to think of him and to get better because of him. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah be pleased with him, he says about this verse, he says there's a difference between a legacy that is for fame, for the desire of recognition, and a legacy that is for Allah. The legacy that Ibrahim alayhi salam wanted was a legacy for Allah. Not for fame, not for people to praise him, not for recognition, but for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when making this dua, there's two types of niyyahs. There's two intentions that we can have. People can say, oh Allah, I want to be famous. Make people love me for the sake of my ego. Or maybe they don't even say this to Allah because it's hidden deep inside of them. They want to be famous. They have an ego that they want to feed. So this was one intention. But the good intention for this is that you want Allah to be exalted because of you. Who you are and your character and what you've done for others and the lives that you've touched, this is the legacy you want to leave behind. Here, brothers and sisters, is the true definition in Islam of leaving a positive legacy. So if you forget all that I say, remember this. You want to leave behind a legacy in which people are inspired to get closer to Allah because of you. You want to leave behind a legacy in which people are inspired to get closer to Allah because of you. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name is remembered. That Allah is worshipped. That His name is exalted because of you. Because of how you touch someone's life. Because of how you were with people. Because of the investment that you made in this dunya for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wherever you go, you influence others. You know, there's people who are just like this. There are brothers and sisters that we all know, that because of what you feel about them and their closeness to Allah, they might say a small word to you and it just touches your heart. And it penetrates your heart. Because of their closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because their intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is part of keeping continuous deeds going on for you after you're gone. In Surah Yasin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُم. We shall certainly bring back the dead to life, and we will record whatever they have sent ahead and the legacy that they've left behind. We will record whatever they've sent ahead and the legacy that they have left behind. So when it's our time to go, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that He has recorded two things for us. What we sent forth and what we left behind, the legacy that we left behind. What you sent forth is your good deeds. The legacy you left behind is how you inspired others to worship Allah, or what impact you've made on the lives of others after you've gone. Who did you help in this world? Who did you encourage to turn their life around? Who did you remind to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How did you raise your children? How are they going to raise their children? Who did you teach something to? These are the things that we will have before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The efforts that are bigger than us. There's a story that I came across by the man with the name of Scott Neeson. He was a vice president of international marketing at 20th Century Fox. And he was this multi-millionaire, had his mansion in Beverly Hills, had his fancy cars and party life. He worked on movies like Braveheart and Titanic and X-Men and Star Wars. And his story goes like this. He was on vacation in Cambodia. And he decided to leave the resort one day. And he saw how the people were living outside of this resort. And he saw this huge dump. And he saw these little girls searching through this dump so that they can find maybe something to sell so that they could eat something. Or maybe even something that they could eat or share with their families. So he told these two young girls, he said, "Could I pay for you to go to school?" And he spoke to their parents and he put these two girls through school. And he started going back and forth from Beverly Hills back to Cambodia, to this town, this very, very dirt poor town. And when people saw him, they recognized him, and other kids would come to him and they would say, "Mr. Neeson, can you put us through school too?" And so he started putting more and more kids through school. And then one day, he's out there at the dump with some kids, and he gets a phone call from the agent of one of his actors from one of his movies. And the actor says to him, he says, "Do you know where I am right now?" He says, "No, where are you?" Keeping in mind, he's standing at a dump site. He says, "No, where are you?" He says, "I'm on my actor's private jet. And do you know what type of water, what type of bottled water is on this jet right now?" He says, "No, what type of bottled water?" He says, "Not the type of water that my actor drinks." And the actor says to him, he says, "Here, give me the phone," to the agent. He takes the phone and he says, "My life is not supposed to be this difficult, fix it." And he hangs up the phone on his face. And there he is, in a dump trying to help kids that can't even find food to eat. He says, "I'm done." He quits his job, he leaves his life, sells his mansion, moves to Cambodia, and starts a foundation called the Cambodian Children's Foundation. This is someone who thinks of something that's greater than him, greater than his own minuscule and minute life, that you want to give back and make a difference in the lives of those around you. Brothers and sisters, today we want to ask ourselves how we are going to make a difference in the lives of those around us. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لكم واستغفر لكم من الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم يوم الدين. Brothers and sisters, what are people going to say about you when you're gone? That's something that we should be thinking about in our lives, in our waking moments, so that we could live our lives accordingly. What will people say about us? What will our legacy be? This should be something that we should be planning. We should be competing against one another for good. We should be competing against one another to do better, to have it, make a difference, to make an impact. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. And there are those who compete and they strive against each other to do good in this dunya. To do good and to make those deeds the best deeds that we can, so that they could be from among the baqiyatus salihat, the everlasting good deeds. That's how we will maximize our legacy. I want to end the khutbah today with 3 practical ways that we can maximize our legacy. Number 1 is that we have to have sincerity in our actions. If we don't have this, then we have nothing. We have to have sincerity in our actions. If you want to leave a legacy, your niyyah has to be for Allah and not for the people. Not for our egos, not for praise, not for recognition, but for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll find that sometimes the work of one person is accepted and similar work of another person is not accepted. And this comes down to the niyyah. Imam Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, when he was writing his Muwatta, there were other scholars and other people who were writing similar works. And when asked about it, Imam Malik, he said, what is done for the sake of Allah is what's going to remain. What is done for the sake of Allah is what is going to remain. So number 1, sincerity for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 2, touching the hearts of those around you. Touching the hearts of your small circle, your family, your close friends, your community. Make a difference in those people's lives. A small act of kindness can change the trajectory of somebody's life and you wouldn't even know it. A kind word that you say to somebody may change someone's life and you don't even know about it. And perhaps on Yawm al-Qiyamah you have all these deeds on your scale and you don't know where they came from. But you impacted someone's life because of a kind word that you said. Because of an encouraging word that you said to someone. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves someone, He calls out to the angels. He calls out to Jibreel alayhi salam. He says, oh Jibreel, I love so and so, so love him. And then Jibreel alayhi salam loves that person. And then he calls out to the angels and the inhabitants of Jannah. He says, Allah loves such and such person, so love him. Or love her. And then they love that person. Until the inhabitants of the earth love that person. And what does that mean? That means when you're sincere to Allah, you can say a small gentle word and have a big impact on someone. Because it is sincere for the sake of Allah and it comes from your heart. Number 3 is to make dua that Allah uses you in His cause. Find something that you're good at and continue working on that thing. Serve others through your skills and through your talents. Ask yourself, what is it that I'm actually good at? What do I enjoy doing that can benefit other people? If I could do any job at all, what would it be? How can I serve others in a way that very few people can? And again, this includes especially impacting your family and your close friends. You will not leave a legacy because you did something for a short period of time, so you have to be patient with it. And you have to strive and continue to strive and continue to strive. It requires dua. It requires your patience when doing these. Brothers and sisters, what will our legacy be? Start planning it from now so that when you're in your old age, you don't start thinking about what can I leave behind when I'm gone. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us all to make an impact on those around us and to leave a legacy after we're gone. Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, wa qina wasrif anna bi rahmatika sharra ma qadayt. Allah atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Wa barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.